I'm a bottom and in my free time, I love reading Korean manhwa. One night, I shared a comic I was currently following with my best friend. This is amazing. Drooling. I really want to experience this drooling. Right when I was getting absorbed, my phone suddenly showed a new message. Boss Nathan. You're certain? Opening the conversation. I almost died right there. The bill man, while I intended to share with my bestie, got mistakenly sent to my immediate boss. I stared at my boss's message. You're certain? On my phone. Completely startled, like someone on their deathbed suddenly sitting up. I'm ruined. My shared message was long past the retraction deadline. The glaring red PDF file was stabbing my eyes mercilessly. Those 2 explicit declarations beneath the file made me want to disappear into thin air. Who can rescue me with shaking hands? I attempted to type a message, explaining to Nathan Chen that I sent it to the wrong person, that I didn't intend to contaminate his vision. As Nathan's assistant, I've always presented myself as reliable and composed at work, especially around Nathan. Now my image is completely destroyed. Even with an explanation, I could never face tomorrow with a smile. Face my direct supervisor, Nathan. My finger hung over the send button, too terrified to press it. Then Nathan sent another message. Jamie, come see me in my office tomorrow morning. I immediately went rigid. I'm finished. Completely finished. I'm getting terminated. I typed and erased in the chat, editing back and forth, finally condensing everything into 2 words for Nathan. Understood. After pulling an all-nighter creating my resume, I arrived at work the next morning and startled everyone. 2 black eyes like I've been punched twice. Assistant Jamie. What were you doing last night? Never seen Assistant Jamie so drained. Did you get into trouble? Several colleagues looked at me with curious expressions. I responded to my joking coworkers with my usual warm, yet detached smile. Had trouble sleeping last night? Didn't rest well. I really did get into trouble. The kind that ruins your reputation. It was 8:50 a.m. In 5 minutes, Nathan would arrive at the office. Sitting at my workstation, I felt extremely anxious and uncomfortable. Nathan wouldn't actually fire me. Would he? Would he contact the authorities and have me arrested for harassment? Save me. If he's really terminating me, could I at least get double severance? Assistant Jamie, the boss is calling for you. A voice called from behind, and I shut up. When did Nathan get here? Standing outside Nathan's office door, I repeatedly raised and lowered my hand, finally biting down hard and knocking. Walking into the office, Nathan slightly furrowed his brow and asked. By the delay, I became even more flustered. Was he that impatient to terminate me? Standing before Nathan's desk, I kept my head down low and asked, despite knowing Mr. Nathan, what did you want to discuss? After speaking, I heard my heart shatter with a crack. 6-figure salary position. I don't want to lose you. But instead of Nathan's verdict, someone suddenly touched near my eyes. Nathan asked, didn't get good rest last night? I automatically looked up, done to see Nathan, who had somehow appeared next to me. Looking into Nathan's incredibly attractive face, and recalling last night's PDF that made me want to flee the planet, my face immediately flushed with mortification. Jamie, your face is really red, Nathan observed. SOS, Nathan truly is straight. Absolutely and completely heterosexual. Is red. Unable to form words. Useless mouth. Speak up, Jamie. I get it now. Having failed to produce a single coherent thought, I stared at Nathan, bewildered. What do you get? Did you watch me working on my resume all night? No need to explain. I'm on board. But your suggestion yesterday was too rushed. We should go gradually, don't you think? After Nathan spoke, his face mysteriously developed a pink tinge. Probably because I'd been awake all night. I was so exhausted I was hallucinating. I couldn't comprehend what Nathan was talking about. Maybe heterosexual guys think differently than us gay men. Before I could respond, Nathan guided me toward his private room. Your eye bags are severe. Rest for a while. I found myself being positioned on the comfortable bed by Nathan, completely bewildered as he began removing my shoes. I finally snapped back to reality and jerked my foot away. Mr. Nathan, this is inappropriate. Jamie, you belong to me. How could it be inappropriate? Nathan's voice wasn't his typical professional tone. His words and gaze held an affection I couldn't decipher. Nathan's appearance was perfectly suited to my preferences. I foolishly lost my senses and actually settled onto the bed. The bedding carried the same cedar scent that always surrounded Nathan. Breathing in that aroma, I drifted off. Me, the executive assistant, sound asleep in the executive's private room, while the executive worked. Jamie, you dare to be negligent? You're terminated. I startled awake from the nightmare, drenched in perspiration. Suddenly, I noticed heat radiating from behind me, as if someone was there. The person embracing me from behind was my direct supervisor, Nathan. So my back wasn't sweaty from terror, but from warmth. Hold on. Why was Nathan sleeping while holding me? I tried escaping Nathan's embrace, but whatever this guy had been eating growing up made his arms incredibly strong and firm, gripping me too tightly to break away. Nathan awakened from my struggling. He stayed close to my ear, his rich and resonant voice reaching my hearing. Feel better? You only rested a couple hours. Want more sleep? His heated breath touched my earlobe, creating a tickling sensation. I awkwardly touched my ear. You straight men just don't understand boundaries. My voice carried some bitterness. Mr. Nathan, I'd like to stand up. Could you release me first? Now even my severance might be in jeopardy. Boss Nathan's elaborate trap. Jamie falls for the setup. Jamie, why do you keep saying Mr. Nathan? Nathan maintained his hold, continuing to speak near my ear. Was I forbidden from using his title before termination? How did I succumb to Nathan's attractive manipulation and actually sleep in his private room? To get me to mess up willingly. Nathan really went all out. Nathan, release me. Becoming frustrated, I used Nathan's first name and elbowed him. Nathan didn't release me, but chuckled. Jamie used that name going forward. No more Mr. Nathan. Jamie, you're underweight. I need to eat more. Jamie, I'm noticing for the first time that you have lower back dimples. What was Nathan's bizarre observation? My weight? My back dimples? How was any of that his concern? Clueless heterosexual Nathan helped me sit up on the bed. Are you hungry? I'll get you food. Nathan ordered from the restaurant I frequented most. I was baffled once more. What was his intention? My final meal before the execution. I muttered under my breath, watching as Nathan calmly unpacked the takeout bags on the small glass coffee table in his private lounge. It wasn't just any food. It was the spicy pork bulgogi from the little Korean place 3 blocks away, the one I ordered from every Tuesday. He had even remembered the extra side of pickled radishes. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead. He's fattening the pig before the slaughter. He wants me completely docile before he hands me the termination papers and the NDA. Eat, Nathan commanded, though his voice was entirely stripped of its usual icy boardroom edge. He handed me a pair of wooden chopsticks. I took them with trembling fingers. Nathan, really, you don't have to do this. If you have the paperwork ready, I can just sign it. I'll pack up my desk. You won't even notice I'm gone. Nathan paused, a piece of beef hovering halfway to his mouth. He looked at me, those dark, impossibly deep eyes narrowing. Why would you pack up your desk? Because of the incident, I stammered, feeling the heat rush back to my cheeks. The PDF. The contamination of your phone. Nathan set his chopsticks down. He leaned back against the plush velvet sofa, crossing his arms. The fabric of his tailored dress shirt stretched across his chest in a way that, under any other circumstances, would have me furiously taking mental notes. Jamie, Nathan said slowly, a strange, amused glint in his eye. Let me get this straight. You send me a highly explicit, 70-page illustrated document featuring a corporate executive and his assistant. You attach the message. This is amazing. Drooling. I really want to experience this. And you think my response to that is to fire you? My brain short-circuited. I opened my mouth, but only a pathetic squeak came out. I told you, Nathan continued, his voice dropping an octave, rich and resonant. In the quiet room. I am on board. But as I said, the desk scene on page 42? We are not trying that. Not yet. You are much too tense right now. And as I noted earlier, you need to eat more. You'd bruise on the mahogany. I stopped breathing. The air in the room evaporated. Page 42. He didn't just see the cover. He didn't just read the title. Nathan Chun, the notoriously strict, hyper-efficient CEO of the company, a man who once fired a VP for using the wrong font in a quarterly report, had read the entire gay smut manhwa I sent him, and he analyzed the physics of the sex scenes. You read it? I whispered, my soul currently halfway out of my body, preparing for ascension. Every page, Nathan confirmed without a hint of shame. I must admit your approach to initiating our relationship was highly unorthodox. I expected you to ask me out to dinner, perhaps drinks after a successful merger, but a detailed visual instruction manual? I appreciate the efficiency, Jamie. Nathan, it was a mistake. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. I meant to send it to my best friend. It wasn't a proposal. I didn't, you're straight. Silence fell over the room. Heavy, suffocating silence. Nathan stared at me. The faint trace of a smile vanished from his lips. For a terrifying second, I saw the ruthless businessman return. I'm straight, he echoed, his tone dangerously soft. Well, yes, I rambled, digging my grave deeper with every word. You never talk about men. You reject everyone. You're Nathan. You exist purely to maximize profit margins and look ridiculously good in Tom Ford suits. I assumed You were just a very dedicated, very confused heterosexual man trying to mind game me out of my severance. Nathan let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like a laugh, though he pinched the bridge of his nose to hide it. When he looked back up at me, the annoyance was gone, replaced by something entirely different. Something hungry. Jamie, Nathan said gently. Do straight men usually invite their male assistants into their bed, hold them while they sleep, and compliment their lower back dimples? I don't know. I threw my hands up. Straight guys do weird stuff all the time. You guys slap each other's asses in sports. In one fluid motion, Nathan closed the distance between us. Before I could process his movement, he had trapped me against the back of the sofa, one arm resting on the cushions behind my head, the other resting on my thigh. The sharp, clean scent of cedarwood enveloped me entirely. Let me be crystal clear. Since your deductive reasoning seems completely compromised by sleep deprivation, Nathan murmured, his face inches from mine. I am not straight. I have never been straight. And for the last 2 years I have been desperately, painfully attracted to my brilliant, beautiful, and apparently oblivious assistant. My heart slammed against my ribcage. Thump, thump, thump. You what? You heard me, Nathan said, his thumb brushing a stray lock of hair away from my forehead. The touch was agonizingly gentle. When I got that file last night, I thought you had finally caught on to the fact that I've been practically begging for your attention. I thought it was your bold, slightly unhinged way of making a move. So you weren't angry? I was ecstatic, Nathan confessed, a genuine, breathtaking smile breaking across his face. It was the first time I had ever seen him look truly vulnerable. And now you're telling me it was an accident. The mortification washed over me again, but this time it was mixed with a wild, bubbling surge of adrenaline. Nathan liked me. Nathan liked me. The man I had been secretly thirsting over through hundreds of boring board meetings had spent the last 2 years thirsting right back. It was an accident, I admitted softly, looking down at his hand on my thigh. But I'm not taking it back. Nathan's breath hitched. Are you sure? Because you were shaking like a leaf when you walked into my office. I was terrified of being fired, I admitted, finally looking up to meet his gaze. But if you're telling me that the desk scene is actually on the table. I said we aren't doing the desk scene yet, Nathan corrected, his voice dropping into a raspy whisper that made my toes curl in my socks. He leaned in, his lips brushing the shell of my ear, sending a violent shiver down my spine. We are starting with page 12. My brain frantically flipped through my mental archive of the manhwa. Page 12. What happened on page 12? Oh, the elevator kiss. Before I could brace myself, Nathan pulled back slightly, his eyes tracing my lips. Eat your bulgogi, Jamie. Go back to your desk, finish your shift. Try not to look like you've been thoroughly ravaged, because the office gossips are already staring at you. And at 6 p.m., wait for me in the private executive elevator. He pulled away, straightened his tie, and walked back to his desk in the main office as if he hadn't just completely dismantled my sanity. I sat alone on the sofa, clutching my chopsticks. The rest of the workday was absolute torture. I don't remember sending a single email. I don't remember taking a single phone call. Every time Nathan walked past my desk, he didn't look at me, but the faint, lingering scent of cedar would drift over my workstation, and my face would instantly ignite. Jamie, are you running a fever? Sarah from accounting asked around 4 p.m., leaning over my cubicle wall. You look like a tomato. And why did Mr. Chen bring you coffee earlier? He never gets his own coffee, let alone yours. I'm fine, I squeaked, aggressively typing absolute gibberish into an Excel spreadsheet. Just allergies. The HVAC system in this building is terrible. Right, Sarah said, clearly unconvinced. At 5:55 p.m., the floor began to clear out. I packed up my bag, my hands clammy. My mind kept flashing back to the manhwa, the dominant boss, the helpless but willing assistant, the sheer, overwhelming intensity of it. I had read it as a fantasy and escape. I never in a million years thought I would be living it. At exactly 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. A single text from Nathan. Elevator. I grabbed my briefcase and practically sprinted down the hall. The executive elevator was at the far end of the corridor, out of sight from the main bullpen. The door slid open as I approached. Nathan was already inside. He had taken off his suit jacket, rolling the sleeves of his crisp white shirt up to his forearms. His tie was loosened. The casual, slightly disheveled look made him so devastatingly handsome, I almost forgot how to walk. I stepped in. The doors glided shut behind me, sealing us in the polished steel box. You're punctual, Nathan noted, pressing the button for the underground parking garage. It's my job to be punctual, Mr. Chen. I shot back, a nervous habit Nathan's eyes flashed. He hit the emergency stop button. The elevator lurched slightly and came to a halt. The sudden silence was deafening. I thought I told you, Nathan said, stepping slowly toward me. No more, mister. My name is Nathan. He backed me against the cool metal wall. My briefcase slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I was trapped between the wall and a solid wall of muscle, heat, and cedarwood. Nathan, I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. Better, he murmured. He reached up, his large, warm hand cupping my jaw. His thumb traced my lower lip. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this. Watching you run around with your little clipboards, flashing that professional smile at everyone. It drove me insane. I tried to be good at my job. You're too good, Nathan said, leaning down. But right now you're off the clock. And then he kissed me. It wasn't a gentle, testing kiss. It was exactly like page 12. It was desperate, claiming, and entirely overwhelming. Nadan's lips parted mine. Effortlessly, his tongue sliding in to taste me with a hunger that made my knees buckle. I let out an embarrassing, breathless whimper, my hands instinctively flying up to grip his shoulders to keep myself from collapsing. Nathan groaned, pressing his body flush against mine. He was completely solid, radiating heat. One of his hands slid down from my jaw to grip my waist, pulling me tighter against his hips. I could feel exactly how much he had been waiting for this. My brain completely melted into a puddle of useless, happy mush. When he finally pulled away, we were both gasping for air. My lips felt bruised and tingling. Wow, I whispered intelligently. Yeah, Nathan agreed, resting his forehead against mine. He reached over and flipped the emergency stop switch back. The elevator hummed back to life and began descending. Come home with me, Jamie. It wasn't a question, and frankly, if he had tried to put me in a cab and send me to my own apartment at that point, I probably would have fought him. Yes, I breathed. Nathan's penthouse was exactly what you would expect from a man who meticulously orchestrated corporate takeovers. It was sleek, minimalist, floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking the glittering city skyline. It was intimidating, but right now, I didn't care about the decor. The moment the front door clicked shut behind us, Nathan's composure completely shattered. He didn't even bother turning on the lights. He pinned me against the heavy oak door, kissing me with a ferocious intensity that left me dizzy. My hands tangled in his perfectly styled hair, ruining it, while his hands roamed everywhere, down my spine, squeezing my hips, lifting me slightly so my feet barely touched the floor. Nathan, I gasped as his lips moved from my mouth down to my jaw, pressing open-mouthed kisses down my neck. You don't know, he muttered against my skin, his teeth lightly grazing my collarbone, making me arch my back. You have absolutely no idea what you did to me yesterday. When I opened that file, when I read what you wanted, I was just reading it. I protested weakly, though my hands were currently busy unbuttoning his shirt with desperate clumsiness. Well, now you're living it, Nathan growled. He swept me up into his arms, carrying me effortlessly down the dark hallway. I clung to him completely, overwhelmed by the sheer, terrifying thrill of it all. He kicked open the door to his bedroom and dropped me onto the massive, king-sized bed. The mattress was ridiculously soft. I scrambled backward, slightly as Nathan stood at the edge of the bed, slowly stripping off his shirt. In the moonlight filtering through the windows, he looked like a Greek statue, carved from marble. Broad shoulders, a sculpted chest, and a heavy dark gaze, fixed entirely on me. Take off your clothes, Jamie, he ordered softly. The authoritative tone sent a jolt straight to my core. The inner bottom in me, the one who spent his weekends devouring manhwas, was practically throwing a parade. I fumbled with my clothes, kicking off my shoes, shedding my slacks and shirt until I was shivering in just my boxers. Nathan followed me onto the bed, crawling over me like a predator cornering his prey. He caged me in with his arms, looking down at me with such raw, unfiltered affection that my heart ached. You're beautiful, he whispered, pressing a kiss to the corner of my mouth, then moving down to my jaw. And I'm going to make sure you never regret sending that file. What followed was a blur of heat, skin, and whispered praises. Nathan was exactly like the boss in the comic, dominant, demanding, yet impossibly attentive to every sound I made. When his fingers slipped beneath the waistband of my boxers, I gasped, my back arching off the mattress. He knew exactly where to touch, how much pressure to apply, driving me to the very edge of sanity. Nathan, please, I begged, my fingers digging into his back as he left a trail of dark, bruising kisses down my chest. Please what? He teased, his breath hot against my stomach. Use your words, Jamie. I want you, I sobbed, completely abandoning my dignity. Please. When he finally pushed inside me, I cried out, my vision white hot behind my closed eyelids. It was intense, filling, and so unbelievably good that I couldn't form a single coherent thought. Nathan moved with a slow, agonizing rhythm, making sure I adjusted to him before he began to pick up the pace. Every thrust drew a sharp gasp from my lips, the pleasure building in my lower stomach like a coiled spring. The cedar scent of his skin, the sweat glistening on his shoulders, the deep, guttural groans he made every time I tightened around him. It was sensory overload. Jamie, Nathan ground out, his pace turning frantic, desperate. Look at me. Open your eyes. I forced my eyes open, meeting his dark, blown-out pupils. You're mine, he said fiercely, his hips snapping forward, hitting a spot that made me see stars. Understood? Understood. I cried, the word tearing from my throat as I shattered, spilling over my stomach in hot, messy waves. Nathan followed a second later with a loud groan, collapsing heavily against my chest, his heart hammering against mine. We lay there in a tangle of limbs, completely exhausted, chests heaving. I stared up at the dark ceiling, my brain slowly attempting to reboot. My boss. I had just slept with my billionaire boss, who was apparently hopelessly in love with me. Nathan shifted, pulling me tightly against his side, wrapping the heavy duvet over us. He kissed my damp forehead. You okay? I think. I croaked, my voice rough. I need a raise. Nathan burst out laughing, a genuine, loud sound that echoed in the quiet room. He hugged me tighter. You can have my entire checking account, Jamie. Just don't ever threaten to pack up your desk again. 3 months later. Assistant Jamie, the boss is calling for you. I sighed, saving my spreadsheet, and stood up from my desk. Sarah from accounting gave me a knowing smirk. The entire office had figured out our dynamic roughly 2 weeks after the incident. Turns out Nathan Chen was terrible at hiding his feelings once the floodgates were opened. He practically radiated heart eyes at me during board meetings, which was both incredibly endearing and wildly unprofessional. I walked down the hall, skipping the knock, and pushed open the heavy oak door to his office. Nathan was sitting at his desk, wearing a sharp navy suit, looking up at me over a stack of contracts. He looked incredibly imposing, every inch the ruthless. You rang? I asked, leaning against the doorframe. Nathan set his pen down and gestured toward his desk. Come here. He walked over. Without a word, he grabbed me by the waist and pulled me directly onto his lap. I gasped, instinctively wrapping my arms around his neck so I wouldn't fall. Nathan, the blinds are open. I hissed, smacking his shoulder. It's frosted glass, he replied casually, burying his face in my neck and inhaling deeply. I missed you. We lived together. We had breakfast together 2 hours ago. Still missed you. He kissed the sensitive spot below my ear, making me shiver. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a thick, bound document, tossing it onto the mahogany desk in front of us. I looked down. It was a printed, fully bound copy of the PDF. The very same manhwa that had started this entire ridiculous, wonderful mess. I felt my face heat up instantly. Why do you have that printed out? Nathan grinned, his hands sliding down to rest heavily on my thighs. He flipped the book open, turning the pages until he reached a very specific, highly compromising illustration. Because, Nathan whispered in my ear, his voice dropping into that dark, dangerous tone that always made my stomach do backflips. You've gained 5 pounds. And I think we're finally ready for page 42. I looked at the desk. I looked at Nathan. God bless the wrong recipient button.